Ever felt like your darkest fears of being watched were actually true? Well, this powerful documentation pulls back the curtain on life as a targeted individual, where privacy becomes fiction and safety an illusion. This series stands as both documentation and resistance, a refusal to be silenced despite overwhelming odds. Hi, welcome to the Diary of a Sane Black Woman. This is Marie, your host. This is an impromptu recording, but I thought I would just record it on the spot. I was going to hold off, but here I am because something else happened and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to record it and just get whatever I'm feeling and just document it here. So what are we discussing today? We're discussing the topic of watched from within, right? So the stalking, what happens when stalking is not only happening externally, right? It's happening close by, whether it's your neighbors, people that you trust that are watching you, property managers, workers that work on, within your community and things of that nature. What happens when those that are supposed to be guardians or gatekeepers are actually partaking in the surveillance, in the subliminal harassment, and actually condoning it? So, or actually becoming, when the enforcers actually become obstacles to justice. And so, in theory, property managers, police dispatchers, and other frontline enforcers of rules and laws serve as the connective tissue between institutions and the public, right? So they are expected to uphold standards, protect rights, and facilitate justice. But what happens when these actors either lack legal literacy or worse, weaponize their positions to surveil, intimidate, or obstruct? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is my predicament, right? Many of you have heard at least part of my story so far. I'm 10 episodes in. This is the 11th episode and this is going to be part of season 2. And this is going to be episode 1. But you've already heard, if you haven't, go back and listen to season 1, all 10 episodes, so you can get an idea of my story as a targeted individual. So in any event, what brings us here? We're talking about legal illiteracy and gatekeeping roles, right? So I had a situation, it happened not too long ago, maybe about 30 minutes ago, right? I was online minding my own business as usual. I was watching something on Rumble, actually. It's about an episode on A&E that's coming up, and I'm very excited to actually learn about this series because I think we need more people like this that's actually on the victim side and trying to defend them. It's about basically the war on cyberbullies and basically trying to unmask them. And so in any event, I was basically watching that on Rumble. Dr. Drew was interviewing the host of the show, who is James McGibney. And so as I was watching it, my ears started to pop. And I just my head, I could feel like something, right? I can feel whatever the technology, the EMF waves, RF waves, it was going crazy. I felt it. So whenever there's a concentration on my devices, I can always feel it because it changes. There's a shift in the atmosphere. And so I decided to turn the devices off. I opened the door. And then as I opened the door, maybe a few minutes in, I noticed there was a drone, something that looked like a drone flying towards me. Now, let's not get this twisted. There are planes that do fly over where I live, but that wasn't a plane. It was definitely a drone. And as I was looking at it, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And the timing of it, right? As I walked outside, immediately the drone was flying towards me. And then as I opened the door, I was like, okay, I stepped outside to get a better view. And then I was pointing at it. I was like, okay, that's definitely a drone. And then when I looked, so that I was looking to my left. And then as I was pointing to it, it flew over where I live. It's a duplex. I live in a community, and it's like different units and things of that nature. So then I it flew over my head. I looked to the right. There was another one flying. And so that really, I was just like, okay, this has gotten really ridiculous. Not only people are coming in front of my house, parking their cars, running their cars, and using their phones to surveil me, or just coming in whatever way that they are coming in to surveil me, but they're also using drones. So I was like, okay, that can't be legal, especially because we're actually in a gated community. The gates close after a certain time. Now, I don't know who the drones belong to, if my neighbors are using them or if it's someone else. But in any event, I was like, you know what? I will call the police. I called the non-emergency number, and I obviously was speaking to a dispatch. And I told them, look, this is the situation. There are drones flying over my place. I'm a victim of cyber stalking and stalking. And, I've made several reports. And so now I have drones. In addition to everything else that I've been going through, now I have drones flying over my head. And he said, what's the address of the property? I gave him the address. And then he mentioned that, well, I'm pretty sure that in the public, you could fly drones and stuff. And I said, well, this is not a public, this is a gated community, right? Someone is flying a drone over a gated community, right? And they're flying a drone over where I live and potentially, accessing my data or whatever it is that they're trying to do. And he's like, no, it's not against the law to do that. And so I was just like, okay. And I said, and I've made several reports to the police about harassment and things like that. And I said, I don't think anything has been done. And he's like, well, I'm pretty sure they looked into it if you made the report. And I was just like, okay. So we ended the call. So the first thing I did was go to handy dandy Google and look up the laws, California laws that pertains to drones. And what does the law say about drones? What does California law say about flying drones? Let me read it to y'all. In California, flying drones over a house is subject to various laws and regulations. Here are some key points to consider. Privacy rights. Property owners have the right to privacy and protection from unauthorized surveillance. Unauthorized drone flights can be considered trespassing. Local ordinances. Many cities and counties have local ordinances that may impose restrictions on drone use, including prohibitions over beaches, parks, and public areas. FAA regulations. While the FAA regulates drone flights at the federal level, California has enacted its own state laws to address drone use, including prohibitions on capturing images or recordings of private property without consent. Okay? Criminal penalties. Interfering with emergency personnel or using drones to secretly record individuals in a setting where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy can lead to criminal charges. It is essential for drone operators to be aware of and comply with all applicable laws and regulations to avoid legal issues. Always check with local authorities for specific regulations and restrictions before flying a drone over a property in California. So that is, ladies and gentlemen, the basic rules for California. Now, as far as San Francisco is concerned, San Francisco has specific restrictions on drone operations, including prohibitions in certain parks and over private property without permission. So here we say the dispatch said it was legal, and we see the law says something very different. So we see that there is some issues here with people not knowing what the law says and giving wrong information, or just being dismissive is the default, right? So they dismiss your call, they dismiss what you're calling about and the claim that you're making without even properly looking into it. So here we see the dismissal of legitimate concerns. Victims of harassment or stalking may be told there's nothing we can do, even when legal remedies exist. right? So this was my issue here with the dispatch. I called about the drone. He said it was legal, and obviously, according to what I read here, it is not. It's illegal. It's illegal. And so I'm very frustrated about this, not only about the fact that the drones were flying over me. I've suspected that, and I felt like I've seen drones around, but it was just the whole timing of it. The minute I opened the door, and then also the fact that I was feeling the waves and everything like that, the concentration of the energy towards my devices, and then, going outside and then seeing the drones. So I don't know who's operating the drones. Who knows? But I mean, that's the situation. Also, we have situations where, so we're talking about gatekeepers, right? We're talking about the people that are guardians, law enforcement, more people that work on behalf of law enforcement, whether they're dispatchers or whatever, that are actually obstructing justice. So this brings me to another incident that I experienced today. And it's not that I only experienced it today. It's something that I have been experiencing. And, I obviously have been very suspicious that this individual was also involved, but was just kind of downplaying it because, whenever I would make my comments or complaints about what has been going on, they've been kind of dismissive and things like that, or, yeah, we're going to handle it, we're going to take care of it, and nothing has been done. And I'm talking about the property manager of where I live. And so far, I'm at 3 emails, right? So I've sent 3 emails regarding the cyber stalking by other neighbors, other things that's occurred since I've been here, the subliminal harassment, the cyber stalking, and all of that, and also in-person stalking. I think this has been a month since I made like the formal complaint about what has been happening. And I had sent an email, basically very detailed email. And I also raised concern that, look, this is not only cyber stalking or cyber harassment, this is also discrimination, and like this is potentially against fair housing regulations, right? For people to be treated equally, because at this point, I feel like I'm a target and I'm being treated differently, by not only my neighbors, but the people that work for the community, the people that are, that work for the property management company, because they're also targeting me, right? So, I'm not being treated fairly. I'm being targeted. So this should also potentially be against the law. And so they said they would look into it. They'll get back to me. And then fast forward, I'm not going to get into the details or whatever, but if necessary, at some point I'll, provide more detail, but, just for the purposes of this audio diary, I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what had occurred. So then I followed up maybe, I want to say 2 weeks after the initial email. And I said, look, I haven't heard anything back. I just wanted to follow up, so forth and so on. And they mentioned that, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in the process of drafting something to send out, right? A generic email just to kind of remind all the individuals, basic laws and rules and regulations about community behavior and things of that nature. And she also mentioned that, well, it's kind of the accusations I'm making are kind of serious. And so without substantial evidence, it's kind of hard for them to move forward with anything. So I was just like, okay. And the thing about it is, I want to say that from the first time I reported it, instead of things getting better, especially with the workers that actually report into the property manager, it got worse. They were still like harassing me subliminally. They would walk by my unit with things. They would walk out with objects in their hands. They would be doing certain activities every time I walked by just to harass me. So in my mind, I felt like either nothing was said to them or they got the okay to like, okay, don't pay her no mind or what have you, because it seemed like whatever they were doing was being condoned because they didn't stop. So, I mean, she did mention to me that, oh yeah, I told them to stay away from your property or whatever. So that's that. So 2 weeks from that second email, I noticed I didn't see any letter or anything go out. So I followed up again. I said, okay, this is my third email and second follow-up. I said, I noticed that I made the complaint about everything that has been going on, and I noticed I haven't seen anything go out. And I said, in fact, I actually was forced to put my own note on my door because not only people were stalking and harassing me, but they were actually coming onto my porch, putting things on my porch, and doing all sorts of things on my porch. And I had to put a note on there about trespassing and also harassment because they were trespassing. So with that being said, that third email, I did not receive a response at all. So today makes 1 week since I sent out that email. Now, today I did see an email about handbook or something like that they created for the community, which is going to be released on October 3rd, about different things, including how to pay rent and things of that nature, also community guidelines and things of that nature, right? But nothing specific to what I had brought up, right? Now, a handbook, sending an email and saying we have a handbook versus sending a note about a reminder of how, to behave is completely different. And she never responded to me, right? I had not received the third email, I did not get a response, right? Whether or not that handbook is supposed to be the solution, or it's supposed to be the letter, that wasn't communicated to me. And I don't think that is an effective way to address the current situation, in my opinion. Also, I have reason to believe that there were also some subliminal jabs made in that email about just maybe one or two bullets that in my opinion, I'm not going to repeat what I think the bullets were or whatever at this point. But I just think that there were some subliminal jabs there. So now I mentioned that I felt like the workers, they felt emboldened and to continue the harassment and the surveillance because I just have reason to believe that maybe they're being encouraged to surveil. Not only do they want to surveil, but maybe they're being encouraged to surveil and also harass. I don't know what else to think at this point. And today, I did see a car in front of my unit, and it looked like the property manager's car. I don't know. I don't know where, why it was parked there, and the timing of when I walked outside, and, and the fact that in my surveillance camera, there were missing footage. I don't know. I don't know what to say, right? I don't want to make a statement, like a definite statement, but I have suspicions, right? So it just seems like there's a lot of collusion, going on. A lot of, people are just basically those that are supposed to actually be enforcing policies are actually working against their own policies or working against what the law says in terms of like fair housing and things of that nature. So, potentially an overreach of surveillance, and things like that. And so that's that with that matter. So today I discussed the basically gatekeepers actually being part of the obstruction or actually partaking in the harassment and the surveillance. So I don't know what else to say. This is just me recording my experience as a targeted individual, that, everywhere I turn, everyone I go to, they're saying that there's nothing that they can do. And in some instances, people that are supposed to actually be protecting you, protecting your privacy, are actually the ones that are partaking in it. And so I'm voicing my frustration. I'm voicing my experience. I'm sharing my experience. And I'm hoping that, something changes, something shifts. Today is Rosh Hashanah. So not only is it the new year in the Jewish calendar, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is also this is the first day of fall, right? I don't know. I think today's the first day of fall for 2025. So it's a new season in so many different ways, right? Spiritually, in the Hebrew calendar, but also in nature, right? The seasons have changed. So hopefully this is an indication for me that things will change in terms of justice, getting people to do the right thing and not partake in corruption, and not basically dismiss someone's report about being stalked. Thanks for listening to the Dire-Rie of a Sane Black Woman. Once again, I'm your host, Marie. We're available on all major podcast platforms. Check out YouTube for the visual experience, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next episode.